Marina Costa had always dreamed of a life filled with glamour and excitement. When she married Vincent Shaw 5 years ago, she thought she did found it. He was charming, ambitious, and worked in finance, everything she wanted in a husband. But that was before the accident. The car crash on that rainy October night changed everything. Vincent survived, but his legs didn't. The doctor said he'd never walk again. Marina stood by his hospital bed, looking at the man she would married, now confined to a wheelchair, and felt something inside her grow cold. "We'll get through this together," she said, her voice hollow even to her own ears. The first year was bearable. Vincent threw himself into physical therapy with fierce determination, while Marina played the role of a devoted wife. But as months passed and Vincent remained wheelchair bound, working from home on projects she didn't understand, her patience wore thin. The lavish dinners stopped. The social events disappeared. Their spacious downtown apartment felt more like a prison than a home. "I'm building something important," Vincent would say, his eyes bright with passion as he worked late into the night on his laptop. "Just give me time, Marina. I promise it will be worth it." But Marina saw only a disabled man clenched to a false hope, pecking away at a computer while their savings dwindled. She married a man who took her to charity galas and luxury resorts, not someone who spent 18 hours a day in a home office, speaking in technical jargon she couldn't comprehend. That's when Adrian Blackwood entered her life. She met him at a gallery opening she did attended alone, again. Adrian was everything Vincent used to be: confident, physically impressive, and wealthy in an obvious way. He wore his success like a cologne, and Marina found herself intoxicated by it. "A beautiful woman like you shouldn't be standing alone," Adrian said, handing her a glass of champagne. They talked for hours. He was a real estate developer, he said, with projects across 3 states. He drove a Maserati, wore a Rolex, and had the kind of presence that turned heads in every room. When he asked for her number, Marina gave it without hesitation. The affair started slowly: coffee meetings that turned into long lunches, then intimate dinners at expensive restaurants across town where no one would recognize her. Adrian showered her with attention, gifts, and promises of the life she did been missing. "You deserve better than this," Adrian whispered one evening as they sat in his penthouse apartment, the city lights glittering below them. His hand traced along her shoulder, sending shivers down her spine. "A woman like you wasn't meant to be a nursemaid." Marina leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. "I know," she breathed. I feel so guilty." Adrian's lips found her neck. "You have given him enough. You have sacrificed your happiness for years. When does it become your turn?" That night, Marina crossed a line when she couldn't uncross. In Adrian's arms, surrounded by luxury and desire, she felt alive again. His hands explored her body with confident hunger, awakening sensations she did forgotten existed. They moved together in the darkness, his whispered promises mixing with her soft gasps, and for the first time in years, she felt wanted, desirable, free. The guilt came later, in the quiet hours before dawn, but Adrian was always there to push it away with another hug, another promise, another reminder of everything she was missing. Back home, Vincent noticed the distance growing between them, but he said nothing. He simply worked harder, his fingers flying across the keyboard, phone calls in hushed tones behind closed doors. Marina assumed he was applying for jobs, trying to prove he could still contribute. The thought made her almost pity him. "I need to talk to you," Marina said one evening. 3 months into her affair with Adrian, she did rehearse this speech a dozen times. Vincent looked up from his laptop, his face gaunt from stress and long hours. "What is it?" "I want a divorce." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Vincent's expression barely changed, just a slight tightening around his eyes that might have been pain or might have been something else entirely. Is there someone else? He asked quietly. Marina lifted her chin. That's not relevant. What's relevant is that this isn't working anymore. You have changed, Vincent. Our life has changed. I can't do this anymore. I see. Vincent closed his laptop with deliberate care. And there's nothing I can say to change your mind? No. Marina's voice was firm, though something in her chest twisted at the resignation in his tone. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'm not asking for much, just enough to start over. Vincent looked at her for a long, long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. You'll have what you need, he said finally. I won't fight you on this. The divorce was surprisingly swift. Vincent agreed to everything, signed every paper without argument. He kept the apartment and his mysterious business ventures. She took a generous settlement and her freedom. On the day their divorce was finalized, Marina felt nothing but relief. Adrian was waiting outside the courthouse in his Maserati, all smiles and congratulations. Finally, he said, now we can really start our life together. Marina moved into Adrian's penthouse that same week. For 2 months, life was everything she did dreamed it would be. Adrian took her to exclusive clubs, introduced her to influential people, and treated her like a queen. At night, he made love to her with passionate intensity, his body strong and demanding against hers, whispering that she was his prize, his treasure, the woman he'd been waiting for. But small cracks began to appear in the perfect facade. I need to borrow some money, Adrian said casually one evening over dinner. Just for a week or two. A deal got delayed. Marina blinked. How much? 50,000. It's nothing, just temporary. The project's solid. The funding just got pushed back. She gave him the money. Then another 30,000 the next week. Then more. Adrian always had an explanation, always promised it was temporary, always sealed his requests with hugs that made her forget to ask too many questions. It was her former colleague, Jessica, who shattered her illusion one afternoon over coffee. Marina, honey, I'm worried about you, Jessica said, her voice gentle. Has Adrian paid you back yet? He's waiting on a big deal to close, Marina replied automatically. Jessica's expressions turned pained. Sweetie, there's no deal. I did some asking around. Adrian's company is a shell. He's been living off investments from women for years. You're not the first one. The coffee shop seemed to tilt around Marina. That's not... You're wrong. I wish I was. Jessica slid her phone across the table, showing a series of articles and court records. Adrian Blackwood had been sued multiple times and had outstanding debts across 3 cities and had a pattern of targeting recent divorced women with money. Marina felt sick. She did left Vincent, taken the settlement, and handed over to a con artist. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She did traded substance for flash, security for seduction, and lost everything. She confronted Adrian that night. He didn't even bother denying it much, just shrugged and said, You were so eager to believe in the fantasy, Marina. I just gave you what you wanted. She moved out the next day, taking what little remained of her pride and her dwindling bank account. With nowhere else to go, she found a small studio apartment in a neighborhood far from the life she did once known. It was in that tiny apartment, scrolling through her phone late one night, that Marina saw the article. The headline blazed across her screen. The tech pioneer Vincent Shaw sells AI company for $2.4 billion. Her hands shook as she read. Vincent Shaw, the article explained, spent the past 4 years quietly building Neural Dynamics, an artificial intelligence company that revolutionized predictive analytics for healthcare. The technology he did develop while unemployed and working from home had just been acquired by one of the world's largest tech corporates. He was being hailed as a visionary, a genius who did overcome tremendous personal obstacles to change an entire industry. The article included photos from the signing ceremony. Winston sat in his wheelchair at a massive conference table, surrounded by executives and lawyers, his signatures drying on a document worth more than Marina could comprehend. But it was his expression that haunted her, calm, focused, utterly transformed. This wasn't the defeated man she did left. This was someone who did found his purpose and conquered it. Marina scrolled further, finding interviews after interviews. Vincent spoke eloquently about using his recovery time to identify problems in healthcare data management, about how his disability had given him a unique perspective on accessibility in technology, about building something meaningful instead of drowning in self pity. My ex wife wanted a certain kind of life, Vincent said in one interview, his voice measured and free of bitterness. I respect that, but I needed to build something that mattered, regardless of how long it took or how it looked from the outside. Sometimes the most important work happens in silence. The photographs showed Vincent at charity events, funding disability research centers, speaking at technology conferences. He did move to a custom designed home with a state of the art laboratory. He did hire a team of brilliant engineers. He did change the whole world, while she did been sneaking around with the con artist who wore borrowed luxury like a costume. Marina's phone slipped from her hands. The crushing weight of her mistakes settled over her like a shroud. She hadn't just lost a husband. She hadn't just abandoned a partner during his transformation, dismissed his vision as delusion, and traded a diamond for glass. In the following weeks, Marina couldn't escape Vincent's presence. His face appeared on magazine covers, in tech blogs, on news programs. Each appearance was a reminder of her catastrophic error in judgment. She did see his long hours as failure when they were actually the birth of an empire. She interrupted his focus as obsession when it was actually genius at work. She drafted a dozen emails to him, deleted them all. What could she possibly say? I'm sorry I left you when you needed support because I couldn't see past your wheelchair to the brilliant mind that never stopped working. The words sounded hollow even in her own head. One evening, unable to stop herself, Marina drove past Vincent's new home. The architectural masterpiece sprawled across 3 acres, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, designed specifically for accessibility without sacrificing beauty. Through one of those windows, she glimpsed movement. Vincent working at a massive desk, surrounded by monitors, still pushing forward, still building. She didn't stop. She had no right. Marina found work as an admin assistant, a far cry from her previous life, but honest work that paid her modest rent. She saw Adrian's arrest reported in a small news item, multiple counts of fraud. She felt nothing, but late at night in her small apartment, Marina would search Vincent's name and read about his latest innovations, his growing company, philanthropic work. She was married to a man who faced catastrophic injury and chose to build rather than break. He turned limitations into innovations, who possessed a strength she did been too shallow to recognize. She did seen the wheelchair and missed the extraordinary man sitting in it. Vincent Shaw had offered her a front row seat to something remarkable, and she did walk away because the show wasn't flashy enough, the timeline wasn't convenient enough, the optics weren't attractive enough. The settlement money was gone, squandered on a counterfeit prince, but the real loss wasn't financial. It was knowing she had a treasure and mistaking it for a burden until the moment she threw it away. In the end, Marina learned the cruelest truth of all. Some mistakes can't be fixed, some decision can't be unmade, and some chances, once lost, can never come around again. Vincent had built his empire from a wheelchair, proving that real strength had nothing to do with standing tall, and she would spend the rest of her life standing, perfectly mobile, but completely paralyzed by regret.